Isolation can have different meanings for each person and vary according to the situation. According to the Bible, God uses isolation to distinguish individuals. There are often different interpretations of the concept or principle of isolation. It's important to clarify a common confusion. Isolation and loneliness are not synonymous. They are completely different conditions. It is possible to be in the midst of many people and still feel alone. Thus, loneliness does not automatically imply that you are in a process of divine isolation, nor that God has isolated you. On certain occasions, loneliness can arise for reasons that do not involve direct action by God. It is crucial to understand that divine isolation is a tool that God uses for specific purposes, such as preparation, empowerment, and elevation. It serves as an intentional period of growth and reflection, where the focus is not on the absence of company, but on the presence of a deeper connection with God. So while loneliness can be experienced by anyone at any time, isolation is a deliberate choice by God to work in an individual's heart and life. Furthermore, the experience of isolation can reveal and develop qualities and abilities that remain latent during periods of comfort and convenience. During these times, we often discover a strength and resilience that we didn't know we possessed, learning to depend more deeply on God and less on worldly structures and support. So when we find ourselves in a period of isolation, whether chosen by us or imposed by circumstances, it is an opportunity for introspection and spiritual development that should be valued. These moments prepare us to return to our daily routine, not only restored, but transformed, equipped to face the challenges ahead with a new perspective and renewed faith. Now let's explore why God isolates people. Before we go any further, it's essential to define isolation according to the Bible. In Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, we see God summoning Abraham. He commands Abraham to leave his homeland and his people. To this command, God adds a powerful promise. I will bless you. I will make of you a great nation, and your name will be exalted. This command reveals that isolation can be the starting point for greatness. Great personalities and legacies often develop in isolation. It is important to realize that isolation is not a punishment, but a divine preparation for those chosen by God. The first reason God isolates people is to prepare them. The essence of isolation is to be separated or set apart for a specific purpose. God uses this time to equip and strengthen those He calls to great works. A classic example of this preparation is found in the life of Moses. After fleeing Egypt, Moses spent 40 years in the desert of Midian, where he worked as a shepherd. Exodus 3:1. This period of isolation was crucial in preparing him for the task of leading the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. Another example is the prophet Elijah, who was instructed by God to hide by the brook Cherith, away from Ahab and Jezebel, 1 Kings 17:3. During this time of isolation, Elijah was sustained by ravens who brought him food. This period not only protected Elijah, but also prepared him spiritually for subsequent challenges, including the confrontation with the prophets of Baal. David is also a powerful example of how God uses isolation to prepare His chosen ones. After being anointed by Samuel, David didn't immediately assume the throne. Instead, he spent several years facing hardships and persecution that served as a period of isolation and preparation. During this time, David often found himself hiding in caves or on the run from Saul, who sought to kill him. A striking example of this phase is found in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 24, where David hides in the cave of En-Gedi. This period of isolation was not easy, but it was instrumental in shaping David's character and faith. He learned to depend completely on God, to lead men, and to face adverse situations with courage and wisdom. Furthermore, it was during his isolation that David composed many of the Psalms, which reflect his struggles, his spiritual victories, and his deep relationship with God. For example, Psalm 57, which he wrote while fleeing from Saul in the cave, demonstrates his trust and surrender to God despite threatening circumstances. These examples illustrate how God uses isolation not as a punishment, but as a means of preparation. In silence and solitude, away from the usual distractions, the chosen have the opportunity to grow in faith, gain wisdom, and strengthen themselves for the missions God has for them. This shows that, in God's hands, isolation is a powerful tool for developing the resilience and divine dependence needed to face great challenges. Isolation serves as a critical phase where God not only prepares, but also empowers his chosen ones. The second reason God isolates the chosen ones is to train them for their divine missions. This process involves more than just a call. There is a phase of equipping and eventually sending. During this equipping phase, isolation is essential. In this period, God confers the skills, strength, and spiritual discernment that are fundamental to facing future challenges. Far from being a punishment, isolation is a careful and divine preparation. Let's take the example of David. Anointed at 15, he didn't become king until he was 30. The years in between were not years of inactivity, but of deep personal growth and intense spiritual preparation. These were years in which David was empowered, facing challenges such as the giant Goliath, which highlighted his preparation and the divine blessing on his life. His experiences with wild beasts while tending his father's sheep are also part of this training process. Each adversity he overcame alone was a confirmation of his growing capacity and readiness to lead and protect his people as king. These events highlight the transformative impact of isolation. It's not simply a question of being cut off from the world in a negative way, but of being separated for a time in order to acquire strength and insight. So when you find yourself in a period of isolation, recognize that it may well be a sign that God is preparing and empowering you for great things. As with David, this time of preparation can serve as a training ground for greater challenges and a higher calling to come. This understanding can change our perception of periods of loneliness or isolation in our lives. They are not mere moments of separation, but divine opportunities for preparation and empowerment. Furthermore, it is at this stage that a transformation of desires often takes place, where what was once valued can lose its appeal. This change in desires reflects a deeper alignment with God's will, ensuring that you are not only equipped, but transformed in your emotions and goals. These periods of isolation are not simply times of solitude, but intensive opportunities for learning and spiritual growth. By being isolated, the chosen are immersed in an environment where they can focus fully on developing the skills and spiritual depth needed for the tasks ahead. God uses this time to shape his chosen ones, empowering them not only with natural abilities, but also with spiritual gifts that enable them to perform extraordinary feats in his name. Considering transformation through isolation, let's look at the example of Paul. Formerly known as Saul, he experienced a profound change during a period of forced isolation. After his dramatic encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, Saul was blinded and isolated for 3 days. This period was crucial. It wasn't just a moment of physical blindness, but a profound spiritual awakening and preparation for his new identity as Paul. When he emerged from this isolation, he was fundamentally changed. No longer Saul, the persecutor of Christians, but Paul, a devoted apostle of Christ. This example underlines the transformative potential of isolation. When God arranges these periods in our lives, it is for the purpose of preparing, empowering, and ultimately transforming us. Isolation is a crucible for spiritual refinement and growth. So if you find yourself in a period of isolation, remember the stories of David and Paul. These were not periods of discontent or divine punishment, but times of divine preparation. They were separated not because they were less loved by God, but because they were being prepared for greater responsibilities and deeper relationships with Him. It is crucial to understand that these periods of isolation are essential for experiencing deep spiritual encounters and transformations. They allow you to face challenges with new strength and face life with renewed purpose and clarity. The changes in your desires and priorities during these times are indicative of your growth and alignment with God's will. So embrace the mystery of isolation. Understand it as a divine tool used by God to prepare, empower, and transform you. With this understanding, you can find peace and purpose in a time that could be difficult and confusing. Embrace these moments for the profound opportunities they represent, knowing that they are preparing you to stand firm against any challenge and thrive in your divine calling. Every moment of seclusion is a chance to go deeper into your God-given purpose in life and emerge not just refreshed, but transformed, ready to take on greater challenges and play a crucial role in God's grand narrative for humanity. Meanwhile, isolation provides an environment conducive to reflecting on one's life, reevaluating trajectories and strengthening one's connection with God, allowing for a clarity that is often obscured by daily routine and worldly concerns. So value these moments of isolation as periods of meaningful self-reflection and spiritual renewal, which are fundamental to your growth and development on the spiritual journey. This time is not just a pause in your life, but an important chapter in the formation of your divine identity and purpose. The third reason why God isolates the chosen is to elevate them to new heights in His kingdom. This process of elevation is fundamental, as it transforms a person's perspective and impact on their spiritual journey and mission. When God isolates someone, it is not only for preparation or training, but also to elevate them to a position of greater authority and influence. During isolation, the person has the opportunity to connect more deeply with God, away from the distractions of the everyday world. This more intimate connection allows them to receive revelations and understandings that are crucial for their future leadership and service. As a result, when they emerge from this period of isolation, they are not only prepared, but also transformed and uplifted, ready to fulfill a greater purpose. For example, the biblical story of Joseph clearly illustrates this dynamic. After years of isolation in prison, Joseph was elevated to governor of Egypt, a position that enabled him to save not only Egypt, but also his own families and many other nations from famine. The period of isolation was crucial for developing Joseph's humility, wisdom, and ability to interpret dreams, qualities that were essential for his elevation and subsequent success. Elevation also involves a change in sphere of influence and responsibilities. This is evident in the life of Moses, who spent 40 years in the desert before being called by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Isolation prepared Moses, giving him the strength and resilience to stand up to Pharaoh and lead the people on a challenging journey to the Promised Land. This transformative vision is essential for the chosen ones to understand the deeper meaning of their period of isolation. Through it, God not only strengthens faith and resilience, but also redefines the mission and identity of His servants, equipping them to positively impact their communities and the world. The stories of Joseph and Moses are powerful testimonies of how isolation can lead to a significant increase in a person's reach and influence. They emerged from their periods of isolation not only as empowered leaders, but as divinely ordained agents of change whose actions had lasting effects on generations. This enrichment during isolation shows that rather than being a time of stagnation, it is a time of intense personal and spiritual growth. It is a period where the chosen ones are molded and fine-tuned to play roles that go far beyond their previous capabilities, allowing them to execute divine plans that are greater than anything they could have imagined before their isolation. Thus, every moment of seclusion is an opportunity to explore more deeply the God-given purpose of life and emerge not only rejuvenated, but transformed, ready to take on greater challenges and play a central role in God's greater narrative for humanity. The experience of no longer feeling integrated into your usual environment, losing interest in old passions and facing unexpected obstacles can actually indicate a period of divine isolation. These signs reveal that God is actively shaping your trajectory, adjusting your steps to align them with His plans. This process can take place in any context. It's not limited to remote locations or extraordinary situations, but can manifest itself in your everyday life as you go about your daily activities. Isolation should not only be seen as a spiritual retreat, but as a launch to new heights of effectiveness and purpose. By understanding the divine purpose behind isolation, the chosen ones can fully embrace their expanded role and impact when they return to the world. This return is marked by an increased capacity to lead, influence, and serve in ways that reflect God's deep workings in their lives during their time of isolation. So, my friends, elevation through isolation is a transformation that empowers the chosen ones not only with skills and wisdom, but also with a new identity and purpose aligned with God's will. This is a crucial aspect of the spiritual journey that prepares individuals to make significant impacts in their communities and beyond, under God's guidance and strength. Identifying your area of expertise or understanding what God has specifically chosen you for is an essential theme that could benefit many. It involves discerning your unique gifts, understanding God's call on your life, and recognizing how your abilities can be applied to accomplish God's purposes. If you would like to delve deeper into how to discern your divine mission and identify the areas for which God has specifically prepared you, please comment below. Part 2. I will be ready to explore the second part of this subject, offering guidance on how to discover and develop the unique talents God has bestowed upon you, ensuring that you are prepared to fulfill your calling as you emerge from a period of isolation. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.